What is up, you guys? In today's episode, I want to talk about how to price your custom tables so that you're not pricing yourself out of the market, you're not undercutting all your profitability, and you're landing in a sweet spot where you're profitable, customers are buying, and you're closing deals. Let's dive in. All right, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Zach Vaught. If you don't know anything about me, I grew my custom furniture company to $75,000 a month in about a 6 or 7 year span of time to a 6,600 square foot shop, a team of multiple employees, sold that business for multiple six figures. And I now run the Woodworking Business Accelerator program, run this podcast, this YouTube channel, and really focus on creating content around helping custom furniture makers, woodworkers, cabinetry business owners scale predictably, give out more quotes, close more deals, and improve efficiencies so that they can produce more inside of their business. And so with that, I want to talk to you in this video really around creating a good pricing model for your custom tables. With pricing, I want you to know that there's a little bit of an art, a little bit of a science, and it's not the same for everybody. There's a few things I want to talk about in this video that are going to dramatically change your pricing structure based on how confident you feel with different things, right? One of the things that I want you to know is that pricing is not just straight math. That is one thing that is super important to note here. Pricing is a function of value, perception, and your brand, okay? So with that, I want to walk you through a 5-step process to coming up with a really strong price for your custom work, okay? So before I even dive into any of this, one of the things I want to share with you is a quick and dirty formula for giving out a price. So if you are trying to get quotes out quickly, which is one of the number one things that we really harp on inside of the Woodworking Business Accelerator program, is really getting quotes out fast. If you're trying to do that, the easiest way to do that is to add up your material costs, all of your material costs, lumber, screws, glue, finish, all your material costs, divide that by 0.3, and that's going to give you a roundabout price that you could charge. That's going to land you in a safe place to where you're going to have enough margin to reinvest in your business. You're not going to be dramatically overpriced. But also, just so you know, most of your clients, unless they've talked with somebody before that builds custom furniture from solid hardwoods, they're going to have a little bit of sticker shock here. They're used to seeing, walking into Ashley Furniture and seeing stuff that's imported. They're used to seeing Wayfair prices, right? It's super important that we help them understand what they're getting when they're buying from us. But that's a quick and dirty formula. Material cost divided by 0.3 or 0.35 or 0.4 depends on how much labor you're going to have, right? So if you have super high labor, you need to divide it by 0.3. If you have very low labor, say more of a modern table where you're just buying the metal legs from somebody and attaching them to the tabletop that you've built, you could divide that by 0.4 and that make a lot more sense, right? Because you're not going to spend as much time, you don't have to pay yourself or pay your team as much for labor, okay? So 0.3 to 0.4, material cost divided by 0.3 to 0.35 to 0.4 gives you a roundabout rough price. That's a quick and dirty formula, okay? Now let me let's dive more into the nitty gritty of how does your brand factor in? How does your reviews factor in? How does the perceived value factor into the pricing, okay? So step number one is that you need to know your hard costs. And so you need to know your materials, wood, finish, hardware, all the things we just talked about. You need to know your labor, a rough estimate of your labor. Now, if you're quoting a job for the first time, you've never built this product before, you're not going to know exactly. And that's why the formula that I gave you is going to give you a good estimate. But if you've built it multiple times, if you know what you're doing, you should have a really good estimate if you're tracking your time, which you should be, of what it's going to cost you as far as labor is concerned. And then overhead. What are my fixed overhead expenses inside of my woodworking business, okay? So that includes tools, rent, power, electricity, all the softwares that I'm using, et cetera, okay? So step two is that you need to add a profit margin. This is where everybody forgets to do this. I don't know. And it's because you're not thinking like a business owner yet. You're just trying to pay yourself like an employee. Most people say, okay, here's my material costs. I think it's going to take me 20 hours. I want to charge $25 an hour. So I just add those two up and that's the price. Well, you're not making any additional money to reinvest into your business, to reinvest into marketing, to pay your fixed overhead expenses. And so you need to have a profit margin above and beyond your hourly rate. First of all, I don't love charging by the hour at all to begin with. I think that you should be charging based on what the product is worth. But if you're building this step by step, you would know your hard costs and then you would add a profit margin. So 50% is a good profit margin to shoot for, which I know for a lot of you guys, you're like, man, that's crazy. But if you're running 30% material costs, around 20% labor costs, and you have 50% left, You can invest in marketing. You can invest in moving into a new shop. You can invest in new tools. You can invest in a new trailer that you need to do deliveries, right? You're not going to be able to grow a sustainable business unless you have margin to build up your bank account, to weather slow months, and to also be able to invest in the future of your business, okay? So that's number 2, is add a profit margin. Number 3 is know your market. So this is one of the things that I'll give you this tip, but then I'll also give you a word of caution around it too. A lot of people, hear know your market, and then they immediately think, I just need to price what the market wants or what the market is willing to pay. So you jump on Facebook Marketplace and you see everybody selling dining tables for $600. So you're like, well, everyone else is selling them for $600, so I need to sell them for $600. That is not true. You need to know the market that you want to be in. That is what I want to tell you. If you want to be in the $600 table market, go for it. That's not a table market that I'd recommend that you be in. You need to be in a high-end, well-known luxury table market. So what does that look like? That looks like tables starting at $1,400, $1,500. That looks like dining table sets, depending upon what they are, being as much as $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. That's the market you want to be in, so you need to know that market. What does that market consist of? It consists of restoration hardware pricing, Pottery Barn pricing, Zara home pricing, the luxury, high-end, interior designer-driven furniture brands, okay? And so if you're looking and you're trying to compete with that market, then you can come in underneath their pricing and win, okay? You want to attract the buyers that are shopping on restoration hardware that don't want to drop $7,000 on a table. You can sell it to them for $4,000. They're going to be fired up and excited, right? That's the type of buyer that you want to have. You don't want to be dealing with the $600 table buyer trying to convince them that your $1,200 table is worth it, right? Because if they're price shoppers, they're not looking at anything else other than price. They don't care about the materials. They don't care about the warranty. They don't care about the free delivery. They don't care about any of those things. They just want it for as little as possible, right? Which is not ideal for you. You want clients that see the other things that are valuable as opposed to just the price, okay? And so know your market, but know the market that you want to be in, okay? Step number 4 is build perceived value. I'll say here with building perceived value is that you need to build your brand. But one thing I harp on all the time is photography and videography. If you are getting terrible photos or terrible videos or getting no photos or no videos, you're keeping yourself not just from building your brand from a photography and videography standpoint, but you're keeping yourself stuck at lower price points. The better content that you have, the more money you're going to be able to charge. I know that sounds crazy, but the better that you can display or show the work that you've done, the easier it's going to be to charge premium prices, okay? So make sure that you're getting high quality photos, high quality video. And if you don't know how to do that, the same way that you're on YouTube right now watching me, or you're on the podcast listening to me, search, how do I get better videos? How do I get better photos of my products? There's 10 million resources out there to do it. Get resourceful and figure out how to get better, okay? And so high quality photos, high quality videos, and you want a clear and compelling brand, okay? So one of the things that I see a lot of guys making the mistake of is that they build a brand that looks like it's made for guys that walk around in flannel and carrying axes. You're not trying to build a brand for woodworkers. You're trying to build a brand for buyers. So if you've got a brand that's rough and tough and all about sawdust and axes and saw blades, that is not your buyer. Your buyer is typically women between the ages of 30 and 60 years old, typically, that are married, that have kids or grandkids, that have a home. That's your buyer. So you need to focus your brand more so around a feminine tone. Like, for example, some of our clients, we've helped them rebrand to Family Furniture Co., Fellowship Furniture, Legacy Hardwood Co. We want to create brands that are focused more on things that matter to our clients than that matter to us. Okay, I know sometimes as the woodworker, as a custom furniture maker, you love all the details of that. They just want a pretty table, right? They want a table that's going to last. They want a table that's going to look exactly the way that they want. They want a table that comes with a warranty or free delivery. That's what they care about. Last thing here on building perceived value is you need client testimonials. You need reviews all over Facebook. You need reviews all over your Google listing. If you can get video of clients talking about the experience, that's going to speak volumes as opposed to them just having written reviews or having no reviews. So the more reviews you have, the more language you have about how great your quality is, how easy it is to work with you, how excited they are about the product, that they can't recommend you enough. This is going to continually justify higher prices. And if you have a great brand, you have incredible photography and videography, and you have tons of reviews, you're going to be able to charge more than the dude down the road that's building the $600 dining tables, right? You don't want to compete there. That's one thing I want to just harp on over and over and over again. Then the last part here is step number 5, and that is test and adjust. And so one of the things that you just need to know that is if you're pricing in the higher market, a lot of people are going to say no. If you're selling everybody that you talk to, you're not priced high enough. That's one of the things that I want you just to understand. You only want to close somewhere between 25 and 40% of people that you give quotes out to. The other thing I'll say here is that the environment that you give them a quote also will dramatically change this closing rate. If you're only giving them quotes on Messenger and you're just a faceless brand or faceless person, you're going to have a 10% close rate of every quote that you give out. If you are giving these quotes out over the phone, you're going to close 50%. And if you're giving them out in person, they're coming to your shop or you're doing in-home free consultations, you're going to be closing 80 to 90%, okay? But you just need to know, you need to be testing and adjusting your pricing. If you're seeing a trend overall of you're having a very tough time closing deals, you may be priced too high, or you might need to bring your brand perception up to justify your price. If you're closing all the time, everyone you talk to you're closing, you might be priced too low. You need to start just raising your prices to 5%, 10% every quarter until you're priced accordingly. So with that, this is how to price custom tables. Hopefully this was helpful to you. I gave you kind of the quick and dirty way to price, but then I also factored in, what are the other things that I need to be thinking about when I really settle into a pricing model and a pricing structure? You need to be factoring in profit margins. You need to be focusing on great photography, great videography, building a brand, building up a massive list of reviews where you've got a ton of social proof where people have been excited to work with you. They've gotten a great product. They've loved partnering with you along the way. And then all this needs to factor into the price that you're charging. And again, one of the things that I constantly harp on inside the Woodworking Business Accelerator program, you need to focus on getting your clients into a better environment to close. In person is the best, right? So if you've got to go drive an hour to go meet with a client that's wanting a full dining table set, do it. I mean, it takes 2 hours. You're going to drive there and back. It's going to be 2 hours. You're probably going to spend an hour to 2 hours with them. You spend 3 or 4 hours, but you might get a $3, $4, $5, $6,000 dining table set, right? It's always worth it. And the chances of you closing if you show up in person are really, really high. If you bring stain samples, you've got a catalog of your work, you've got reviews, you can demonstrate why you're a great option to work with. So with that, pricing is part art, part science. Be confident. You're never going to feel like you've got it nailed down perfectly. But one thing, always start working toward improving your brand, increasing your prices, and getting more profit per client. And so if you're looking for some help with this, be sure to check out the Woodworking Business Accelerator program in the description below. We're working with clients all across North America right now to scale them to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 a month and beyond. And there's no reason that you couldn't be the next. And so in that, exactly what we do is we're going to help you increase your lead flow. You're not going to be dependent upon word of mouth or referrals anymore. We're going to be extremely proactive in driving 5, 10, 15 times more leads to your business than you're currently getting. You're going to give out a lot more quotes and you're going to close a lot more deals. And then with that, you're going to get busy. You're going to have to produce all of this furniture or all this cabinetry work, right? So then we're going to really dive into how do we increase the efficiency inside of your workspace? How do we make more profit per hour? Restructure your workflow? What tools do you need? What systems do you need to change so that you can really maximize your current space? And how do you make strategic decisions so that you can grow to the next level inside of your business? And so with that, hopefully this was helpful. If it was, let me know in the comments below. Would love to connect. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do, and I'll see you guys in the next video.